Hi everybody, it's me, Jake, and it's been nearly 3 years since I've last uploaded on YouTube. Crazy, right? But the thing is, a lot of stuff has happened to YouTube, to the internet, and to gaming in general, and I could spend hours talking about this stuff in a very incoherent, rambly video, but quite frankly, I might as well make this short, or as short as I can, because there's a lot to take in with what's happened to gaming in the past few years. And I've actually started this video over several times now because I want to say it coherently. So let's talk about the point of this video, which is I've pretty much lost interest in modern games, and some of it was due to stuff like being stuck at least one wage cage, or a series of wage cages. But the thing is, I've lost interest in modern games because the games just aren't good, period. It would be pointless to make videos all the time about bad video games because it's like all these publishers, all these developers, they're all in lockstep on the same page, making the same games. They're all on the same page making the same games. The same bad games that I have no interest in playing. Oh cool, I can play a new video game that basically is supposed to be my dad. I have daddy issues and my parents are horrible, like, what was that game? Like that Wolfenstein game? There's a lot of games like that bad Wolfenstein game out now. There's a lot of these bad like that Saints Row game. That Saints Row game everybody made fun of. There's so many games like that. It's unreal. And it's not really worth wasting my time or energy talking about just how bad these games are, because these games just aren't good, period. These games aren't even, like, hilariously bad. Some of them are, like that Saints Row game. But most of the time, they're just terrible, but not even worth laughing at. They're just boring terrible, the worst kind of terrible. The one that makes you want to fall asleep and just forget that you even played it. And there were a lot of Xbox One games like that. There were some good ones, but there's a lot of Xbox One games like that where they are so terrible you don't even remember these games exist because they just blend in with the 20 other games just like that you've played. Oh cool, you're playing another game where it's another bad shooter game like Call of Duty is, where, you know how bad this year's Call of Duty is? They did a good job of remaking Modern Warfare 3 in the sense that it's such a disappointment. People are mixing it up with the 2011 one when it comes to, like, making fun of it or reading people criticizing it, because it's literally just gotten worse. And Modern Warfare 3 to begin with was a bad game on the 360, and then they've got the new one, which is even worse. I played some of it, and I knew it was going to be good, not only because I had to use a huge launcher that was gigs and gigs, but to start the game I was presented a warning screen about how they're going to use AI to monitor my voice chat to keep me from saying any bad things. Well, I might as well not use voice chat then, and instead just play mute like everybody does online these days. Because on online games these days, you'll get banned for doing anything. And, you know, that's not to say these games are good or even technically good, because they're not even mechanically good. They're all the same thing. A bad live service shooter that's going to get shut down in 5 years when people stop buying it or playing it. Or even if it has players like that Unreal 4 did. You know, the one that got canceled so that they could make Fortnite? Yeah. That's what gaming's like now. It's kind of like this website is in a way. And YouTube is a pretty bad website these days. The community is gone. Everybody who used to upload either mostly abandoned the sites, uses the channel to milk their stupid takes on NFL or podcasts that nobody listens to. Even some channels I really liked have done that. And, you know, on top of that, sometimes they might even pull an iDubbbz and make a whining apology video saying, "Sorry guys for being funny," and then delete their channel pretty much because, you know, being funny is a crime, seemingly. At least if you're trying to, you know, marry somebody who doesn't exactly like you and is going to ditch you eventually. You know, that's kind of... But that's another story. That's another thing to do with American society these days. Let's get back to this. So, just like that, because of what happened with gaming, pretty much everybody nowadays is in their own little I play what I want circle. And good luck trying to get people online to play a game you want to, because they're either playing a game with their boyfriend or they see you as the 20th side friend to talk to and cling to whenever they're having a bad day. That's what it seems like a lot of people are like these days. It's like a lot of people just aren't the same as they were 10 years ago. I mean, it's obvious why. I mean, pretty much everybody knows why at this point. Even if I can't say it, it's very obvious what happened. But anyways, so gaming's terrible. Culture's down the toilet because all these companies are making the same games. And here's the thing. I could make videos like The Quartering does and just rant all day about why gaming sucks. And I could just make my 10th video today about how woke some video game from Disney is. Or I could play through this game and say it's bad and make a 5-hour video essay, which is what YouTube recommends these days, about why this game is propaganda. I've actually seen that on Odyssey, by the way. I've actually seen some guy upload like a 5-part, 5-hour video about why BioShock is propaganda, and it's like, man, 5 hours. Imagine all the editing, all the time you could have been using to play a game that people should know about instead of just ranting about a game you hate. And, you know, it could be any game. And that's what I've realized. I've realized two things. The first is that people need to start playing other stuff. I mean, the thing is, I think people should play games that aren't just the same things that people are just going to complain about and then complain, why is this bad? And the truth is, there are thousands and thousands of games released for platforms, including ones you've never heard of. Take a look at this front panel from this computer. This is a Sharp X68000. At least the front panel from it, but this is the computer itself. This is a computer that was only released in Japan, and you can emulate it, by the way, like all these other computers and game consoles, with a 10 megahertz 68000, which is this chip right here. It's, unfortunately, there's a little bit of light, but you can probably make it out. That's a 68000, 10 megahertz. And they made versions of it that were faster. There was the X68000 XVI and the X6830, which the X6830 replaced it with a with a 6830 processor, right? And these were not bad computers. When they work, you know, there's a lot of interesting games that were only released on here or that were released on other platforms, but these are the better versions. And there's some arcade ports, but as somebody else said, you know, you can play the arcade versions in MAME these days. But it's a very interesting computer. It's got 5¼ inch drives that actually auto-eject. This is not a normal eject thing. This is a button, and it actually spins the lever. It would be right here. And these are modified teak drives. But anyways, the X68000 is a very interesting computer. And I am working on putting this back together. I've actually got the screws here, and I've got these bars that go right here. I'm trying to figure out where they go. I think it's like this or something. Yeah, I think it goes like this. And the bars go right here, and they keep the machine upright. Or, I mean, they keep the chassis intact. And I've also got this, which is the hard drive caddy. I'm going to have to put a hard drive in here soon. But, that'll be once I rewire the power supply. But it's a very fun computer you should totally give a consideration to emulating. And has a lot of games you've never heard of. Same goes with this computer below. There's actually lots of fan translations. Now, how many are accurate and how many are those quirky localization style fan translations? I don't know, and I have no honest idea about. But there's fan translations being made for this computer, the PC98. This is a H98 Model 80, and I've got some other PC98s here in this basement. But I think you get my point. There's a lot of interesting computers and game consoles that you've never heard of, or that you had no idea games existed like that. Like the 360. Who had any idea the shmups existed if they're not some hardcore weeb? And that's the thing. That's the thing. There's a lot of games you've never heard of that I think a lot of people have never heard of. I mean, or that you might have heard of, but that other people should know about. And I think more consideration should be given to those games. The thing is, they're older games. And, you know, there's not any newer games coming out, and nothing new to be said because you're still playing the old games. And that's the same thing with remasters. There's all these remasters of old games, but they're not saying anything new because they're yet another remaster. And this is where the next thing I might as well talk about comes into play. Making your own game. I think the gaming industry, like I've said, they're too high on their own supply. They're not making games worth playing. They're not making anything you'd want to play. And if somebody were to make their own game that's basically something they would make, not just trying to get money like some Full Sail graduate would, but because they actually are enthusiastic, because it's something they want, something that speaks to them. If somebody were to make a game like that, it would automatically do much better than many of the bad games that come out these days. Like, look at Baldur's Gate 3. Sure, it has mediocrity like bear sex in it, but there were these people who were just like, they've been fed crap so long that they look at a game that's not a live service game with microtransactions, and they're like, gaming's back, baby! Because it doesn't have microtransactions, and it doesn't have, it's not a live service game. So people look at that, and they say gaming's back, even if it's not that great. They'll look at something like that and say, wow, this is amazing, gaming's back, baby. That's how low everybody's standards are. I think it's very possible, if you actually know what you're doing, to make an indie game that speaks to people, that people want to buy. I mean, look at Five Nights at Freddy's. You know why I'm bringing that up? Because that was a game by a guy who could never really make it, and, his art style was a bit weird. He had some Christian games that the art style was too uncanny. He had some other game he made that was like a cult game, especially after Five Nights came out. It was completely different. Same art style, same crude CGI art style, People, liked that game, but it wasn't that big of a hit. Then he releases Five Nights. YouTubers find it because, the jump scare aspect. It becomes a smash hit. It gets a freaking movie that's a smash hit in the box office, even as it's on streaming services. Like, even though the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, you can watch it at home, you can illegally download it if you really wanted to, because it's on streaming, and that's like what streaming does, is people can pirate it. But the thing is, people were still, even with piracy, even with streaming, where it was like the #1 movie on the service, people were going out in theaters to watch this movie that they could have watched at home, just for the experience of saying, I saw Five Nights in the theaters. That's the thing. It's very possible to go big if you're an indie developer, but it's also possible to at least make a cult hit that people on the internet won't stop talking about, that people in your nerd scene won't talk about. Like this guy on itch.io who made some horror game where one of the endings where it's like a horror game about cannibals, and then one of the endings is literally incest, and you've got people on the internet just, I don't think I need to say much more about it, what's going on. But seriously, you can get big on the internet by making games like that. You can get big on the internet by making a game that's something that you really feel connects to you. And I think a lot of people aren't doing this because they'd rather be on the treadmill of hate watching or hate playing. And that's the thing. That's the point of this video I'm trying to make here. Stop hate playing games. Even if you don't want to make a video game, even if it's above your pay grade, stop hate playing games, or essentially hate watching them in a way. Stop going out of your way to consume media that you know is mind poison, because it's not good for your health, and quite frankly, it's just going to make you depressed, and a negative Nancy who just goes on the internet and complains about, gaming's ruined. Gaming's ruined, guys. They did this and that in a commercial video game. Yeah, because the same people, all on the same page, are making these video games, and not people like you and me. It's kind of obvious at that point. But there's a lot of people who are still going to fall into that trap of doing that. And I think this is something that needs to be addressed here. People should start making stuff that's good and not garbage, because I think that's how gaming's going to get better, is if people just did that. Alright, it's back together. I'm just going to have to find out where I put my stash of panhead number 4 screws, because that's what seems to go there. I think somebody might have cross-threaded it using like raw sheet metal screws or something, but it works well enough for this to go through. Or Sharp might have used those. I don't know. This X68000 stuff's weird with what screws they used, but as you can see here, soft power even. You can put a floppy in, and it'll spit out because there's no boot media on here. It displays that error message. Would hit the reset button. It's not aligned properly. Either reset or interrupt are, it seems. But I think you get my point here. It mostly works. I've just not aligned these front buttons up properly, so I can't reset it for now. But you can see it's a soft eject, soft power. I mean a software controlled auto eject, that's what I meant to say. Push it in again. And look, it's booting. It looks just like DOS. Even though it's a 68,000. Very nice machine. But I think you get my point here that I was trying to make, and that is that, you know, if you're tired of new games, you can stop playing them and stop hate playing these new games. Play older ones that are just better. Be it real hardware or with an emulator. And the same goes with making your own games. You should totally make your own games instead of just sitting around and complaining on the internet. And I think that's what a lot of people should have done. I mean, imagine what people could have done if they had not hitched themselves to a single website that could cut their income off or career off at any day if they feel like it. Imagine where we could be. But unfortunately, a lot of people are consumers, and they're good at riding the gravy train, but they're not good at making money or going anywhere, rather. That's what I should have said instead of making money. They're not good at going where they want to be. They either only see dollars, or they want to live that whole hustle culture where if you're not making money from it, you shouldn't bother with it. That's how a lot of YouTubers live. That's how a lot of YouTubers live. They've got that hustle culture mindset of if you're not making money with anything you're doing this very second, don't do it. And that's why they tend to be spiritually dead. Look, it even spits the floppies out as it loads the game. Cool system. But like I said, a lot of these people, they're creatively dead, spiritually dead. They don't do anything but go on YouTube and see how to make money. Like, this community that used to be here 10 years ago is gone. It's obvious why, even if I can't say it here on YouTube. And that's all that has to be said. You should be making games instead of complaining too. Because if you just sit back and complain about everything, you are not going to go anywhere except being another McDonald's fry cook in life. That's all that has to be said. Okay, gamers? I'll decide what I'll do in the next month or so overall, but that's all that has to be said. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.